everybody, my name is Kara Brown. I'm an urban fantasy author, and I'm here today to talk to you about 10 books I think that pretty much every author should have on their bookshelf. I know a lot of you are used to seeing the typical On Writing by Stephen King or Bird by Bird, and I'm not actually going to talk about those books, but those definitely do warrant a good look at. But the books that I'm about to show you are books that I have used both in my professional and my personal writing, and that I have found to be really helpful, and I will explain why. So let's just go ahead and start with the first book. So the first book I want to talk about that I think a writer should have is How to Do the Writing Fight Scenes by Ryan Hall. And the reason that I am putting this first is because I have read a lot of fight scenes, and I have read a lot of bad fight scenes. And I got this book because I'm always looking for more material in order to help self-improve myself, and I found this one, I actually found a lot of it to be really, really useful. Sometimes it will also help with the verbiage when it comes to fighting scenes. So, there's a chapter about, different types of bladed weapons and how to use them. It also talks about the description of using those. So if you have never actually been in a fight or you've never used weapons and you're kind of looking for a general guideline about what to use, this is your baby right here. Book 2 is not so much about writing, but it's more about how writers can use social media. And I have met a lot of authors who do struggle with this, and they're trying to branch out or figure out where to get started. This book is a really good primer for trying to figure out what direction you want to go in when it comes to social media. It breaks down all the different platforms that you can use, how to utilize them to the best of their ability, and it also talks about the pros and cons of each one. They've got Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, they got YouTube in there, and they basically tell you the best way to use these in a way that will work for you and help you increase your range online. Next book on the list is How to Write Dazzling Dialogue. If you've ever heard that your dialogue is flat or your descriptions are lacking or anything like that, this is the book that I would always recommend for you. This book is basically it's only about dialogue, and it's about how to use dialogue to increase tension in situations, the best way to use dialogue, pitfalls to avoid. It even goes into the descriptors of how to indicate who's talking without having to repetitively use the word said all the time. It's great. I probably mention this book about once a week, almost pretty much, to everybody in my writing group, or at least to new writers who are struggling with dialogue. And the really nice thing about this is that it's very affordable online on Amazon. Like you can get it for 99 cents on the Kindle, or you can pay the little tiny dollars that he's asking for in order to get the physical copy. I got the physical copy because I like to highlight things, but again, that's just a me thing. The next book that I have to recommend is How to Write Character Arcs. I have mentioned this book so many times, and I know a lot of you are tired of me mentioning this book, but this is a really good book when it comes to writing about character development, character arcs, and it gives a whole bunch of examples, and it talks about the best ways to implement them, and it is an amazing tool. I am not sponsored, nothing. I just think that this book is amazing, and it literally, when I read it when I was struggling with rewriting my first book, I read this, and it just made so many things clear to me, and it really helped me push my book in the direction that it needed to go. The next book I have is if you are a new writer, you have literally no idea what you are doing, and you are just looking for something to give you a guidance on which direction to go, this is the book, The Writer's Little Helper. This basically explains everything from the very beginning of the concept of writing your story to actually writing it. There are so many good resources that are in here. Like on page 46 right here, they've got like how to do character sheets. Like there is just so much that is inside this book that is really useful. And even if you are a seasoned writer, I still think that this is a really good reference tool. I mean, I use it pretty frequently. I refer to it whenever I'm stuck on something and I'm trying to figure out a better way to do the process. And again, I will come and look at this and be like, well, I could try doing it that way. But again, if you are a new writer or you know that somebody is about to venture out and they just don't know how to do it, this is the book. This is the one that you give them for Christmas, birthday, whatever holiday. Alright, the next book on this list isn't so much for writers, or at least this type of writing if you're doing fiction writing or memoir writing, but there's a lot of good information that's in here that I think warrants being longing onto this list of books that I'm recommending to you, and it is Your Screenplay Sucks. I started reading this book and I just finished it mostly because I'm in the process of converting a manuscript into a script, and this book has helped me out a lot with the format. I was really struggling with the format, which was the sole reason I got this book, but after reading it, there was a lot of good information, especially here in Act 2 where they talk about the physical writing and basically how to make sure that your writing is clear, it is concise, it avoids prose. There's a lot of good stuff in here too. It also talks a little bit about story structure, kind of follows the Save the Cat formula that's in here. So if you want something that, that is Save the Cat, but you don't want to actually go buy the book, you can get this and it will cover all of that too. Now, if you are an author or you're about to be an author, there are a couple things that you will have to go ahead and get set up. You'll have to get your social media set up, your website set up, and then you're going to have to also make sure that you get your newsletter set up. If you have literally no idea what to do with a newsletter, how to write it, how to format it, how to do anything with it, this is the book for you. It is a very simple book. It is not very intense, but it explains everything in a very concise manner, provides options, gives examples. It is really good. I thought I knew a lot about, writing a newsletter and getting it formatted for my audience, but there was definitely some information in here that I thought was really valuable when it came to constructing newsletters for my readers. So, again, this is a really good book. Can't recommend this any more than I have the other ones right now. Now, these next two books that I'm going to recommend to you involve the dreaded E word that most authors hate hearing, and that is editing. When it comes to editing your manuscript, there's definitely some things to take into account. Now, one thing that's going to save you a lot of trouble when it comes to editing and making sure that you are not getting into some verbal argument with your editor is going to be this bad boy right here. This is the Chicago Manual of Style. This is basically the go-to Bible when it comes to editing, when formatting, everything. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty intense book. It's got a whole chapter dedicated to commas. But if you are not sure about something, or you want to clarify about how to write, certain types of dialogue, where does the comma actually go, it's all in here. It's also a very dry read, I won't lie. Now, this is the 17th edition. This is the one that just came out. You by no means need to get the 17th edition. You would probably be okay with the 15th or the 16th one. Those are definitely on discount. Won't be hard to find. You can also find this in a public library as well. It is a very intense book, but I'll tell you what, whenever I'm about to get into it with an editor or they're suggesting some things that I know are off the chart, I always say, according to the Chicago Manual Style on page whatever, it's subpar whatever, what you're saying does not make sense, and I need you to justify about why you need me to push through with this recommendation. It's always fun to do that. Now, the other one that I want to recommend to you is the Copyeditors Handbook. Copyeditor Handbook is a different type of editing. It's not the context. It's definitely look at the lines. This is your grammar book. I really like this book. Mostly because whenever I'm about to do something, I want to empower myself. I want to understand it. And this book has so much good stuff in it. Like, it's just so much good stuff. And it's even got exercises and an answer key for you to practice if you're not sure. And I really enjoyed doing that. It really helped me tighten up my writing when it came time for me to do like my third revision of the book, and this was the thing that I went to for a go-to reference. The very last book that I want to recommend to you is one that comes out every year, and if you can't get to it, you should be able to find it in a library, or you should find it in some other means, but it is the Writer's Market. So I have the Writer's Market for 2019, and of course I have like the big massive one. Now, the really nice thing about this is if you are not sure about an agent or a publisher or anything like that, you can go and look for them in here. And if they are not in here, you tread with caution. That's all I can say. Because anybody who's usually in here is definitely verified, they're vetted, everybody knows that this is a legit thing. Now, the really nice thing about this book is that it has everything from how to write a query letter, explaining the query process. It's got a list of all the agents. It's got a list of all the publishers that are in there, along with their along with their guidelines about how to do submissions, which is really important. The other thing that has in here is all the upcoming contests and competitions that are in whatever genre that you are looking for. And these are all the official ones. Now, naturally, there are other ones that do happen. You can find those in other literary magazines, but if you're looking to kind of plan things out in advance, you should be able to find it in here. I always buy the new copy when it goes for sale in December, so I can read through and see what's going on, and that way I'm up to date. It's also very interesting because I do track different agents and different publishers to see who goes in and out of business. Because I'm just nosy. I'm almost done talking about this book. It's also got a couple of other things like how to finance your money. It's really just a great book that's financed towards that. Talks about how to apply for grants, the different type of grants that you can apply for, any of the contests, freelance work. It just goes through all of that for you. So like literally this is kind of like, it's not the how to write book, but it's how to live as an author book, which I don't think that there are enough of those out there. So again, really good resource. You can pick it up in the public library if you don't want to buy your own copy. Now, there are tons of really good books that are out there. Again, I mentioned On Writing by Stephen King and then Bird by Bird. Those are really good books as well, but of course, a lot of the books, like I have a whole bunch of them on my bookshelf behind me. A lot of the books that I have kind of depend on the situation that you are finding yourself in. For example, I have a whole book that has to do with book proposals, one about the self-publishing process. I have another one about marketing yourself as an entrepreneur. Like, there's just so many different resources that are out there. Now, again, as I always like to do, I want to know if there's a book that you would highly recommend to anybody else to be put on the list. The books that I recommended are basically the ones where you're like, Carol, give me 10 books. Those are the 10 books that I will always recommend at any given time. So share your book with us, explain why, so that way we can, have a nice bank of resources for all of our little author community to use. I think that that's really important. Again, we do live in an age where the only way that we can find stuff out is by talking to each other and sharing these resources with one another. I know a lot of times when you guys share an opinion or a resource or a method with me, I'm kind of like, oh, I didn't know that, and now I do know that. And it also helps me when I have to work with other people. Again, I do attend a writing workshop where we do have new writers that come in, so if I see that they're struggling, it's always nice for me to know what these resources are, so that way I can recommend them to them as well. That brings us to the end of the video. Definitely like to thank you for watching. I'd like to remind you that I do still have a giveaway that is coming out for my book, Queen of Swords and Silence, that is coming out on August 9th. I hear that the pre-orders for the physical copies are coming very soon. I just need to do the final proofread on my part. When I have done that and sent it back in, they will be coming very shortly. If you are new and you have never seen my face before and you are not sure if I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this writer stuff, I have a newsletter that you can sign up for, and when you sign up for it, you get a copy of a short story that I've written, and you can eyeball that and see if I know what I'm talking about, if I've got my ducks in a row, or if I have a style that's appealing to you. This also makes sure that, if you want to actually pre-order the book, that it's in a, it's what you want to read. Anyway, again, thank you for watching. It is Friday. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all next week.